What is going on, guys? Carter here with Edge Mindset. This video is all about integral folders. So if you don't know what integral means, if you want more information about what an integral is, or if you just want to check out all of these really cool knives right here, hang out, comment down below, all of that stuff. We're going to be talking all about these. And if you haven't subscribed, do that, right? Please, it helps me out. It's really, really cool. So, all right, let's dig into it. I don't know. We're going to get a little loosey-goosey here. I'm not quite exactly sure how I want to cover all this. I think I'm going to start with what the hell is an integral knife. Now, some of you already know what this is, so, just bear with me. Add some comments down below, but if you don't know, hang tight. We're going to talk about it. So integral is pretty simple. What it means is a solid piece of material for the handle. I almost said titanium because that's the most common type of integral you're going to see, but that's not always the case. You can have aluminum integrals. You could have, Zytel, really. Like, you could do anything with the integral. What it means is that the handle is a solid piece of material. There's also really old, traditional knives that are integral. Usually those are flat sheet metal that's then bent over, folded over, and then the blades put in, right? That's the simplest way to do an integral and the cheapest way to do an integral. But when you're talking about modern knife nerds and collectors, usually you're talking about a solid piece of titanium that is then milled completely out from the inside, and then everything is stuffed into the handle. We've got a few different examples here. We've got most of these. In fact, I guess all of these are overseas made, right? Because integrals can be quite expensive. Now, I know there's a little rumor floating around that integrals are actually cheaper to make than sandwich construction. And by sandwich, I mean like this. See how this is just two separate pieces of titanium that is then screwed together. Lots of examples here. This one as well. It's got a back spacer here. See how this is three pieces screwed together, fastened together to make the knife, compared to a solid piece of titanium for the handle, like this one here. And of course, here's a Spyderco, of course. Here's a Spyderco Paramilitary 2, same thing. You've got standoffs back here, you've got screws. This one has all kinds of pieces, right? This one has outside scales, inside metal scale for the liner lock, inside metal scale that's skeletonized on this side, and then another outside scale, right? So liners, I should use the right word. It's got two liners in there and two scales. I did a really complicated way of saying that. And then it's all screwed together. It's kind of your more traditional modern knife type design as opposed to the integral. Now, there was some rumors going around on a certain video of somebody talking about how that's all a facade and a lie, and that integrals are actually cheaper to make. And he went through and did all these reasons. Here's the deal. Here's all I'm going to say about that. If integrals were cheaper to make, then most folding titanium knives would be integrals. At the end of the day, there's a reason these are more rare. It's not some big conspiracy for knife makers to jack up the prices. It doesn't make any sense. Knife makers and companies are going to sell what they can sell the most of at the highest price, right? It's all volume. They don't care about secondary. They don't care about, hype and driving up the desire. They care about profits, right? How much their overhead is compared to how much they're outputting. And if it was cheaper to do integral titanium folders than it was to do traditional sandwich construction, we would see way more of these. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that fact. So why? Why would you want an integral knife? Here's where things get a little well, not really interesting. Here's where things get less clear. All right, we'll say that. I personally am of the opinion that there is no actual benefit to an integral, right? Now, I could try and pretend, and I could say, well, usually it has less parts. Like, if you compare it to like the Spyderco, yes, it has way less parts. You've got standoffs, you've got multiple screws, you've got liners, all kinds of things. But if you go to like a modern implementation like this, all of a sudden, it's not quite as crazy, right? Like, this doesn't have that many more parts. Technically, it does, but it's really inconsequential. These are tried and true, more than capable of being a quality, strong knife. You don't need a solid handle for like strength or anything like that. So for me, it is more novelty. It is more, it is more appearance, right? It looks really nice. You can have a clean kind of show side, which is well, this one doesn't really count. This one's interesting. I'm going to talk about that. This one is a little bit of an outlier, and I think it kind of shows a good point. This one's crazy too. So this isn't a very good example. This is an Infinite or Infinity, I forget the name of it. Grievance is the name, because everybody wants to know what the knife is, what this knife is. This is not a knife you're going to find at like Knife Center, right? This is one of those China specials, right, that didn't have a release in the US. You kind of had to not like know people. I'm not talking black market here. I just mean you had to go to sites where, where people would sell these things, and I was able to pick one up. It's pretty crazy. This is a resume knife. We're going to go on a little bit of a tangent here because I'm showing it. This is a resume knife. And what I mean by that is this knife is meant to showcase the capabilities of a manufacturer, right? It's a physical representation of what this knife manufacturer can do, right? So it's showing off crazy detailed inlays, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, that's the ugliest knife I've ever seen. Who would want all of this on there? A, some people do, and B, the point of this knife is to showcase what they're capable of. So you have this deep, deep, deep hollow grind on here. You've got multiple finishes. You've got this polished, blasted finish on the bevels here. You've got satin flats, crazy compound grind with this deep hollow harpoon on the top here. Like I mentioned, really tight inlay work. You can see how this curves up, right? It's kind of showcasing all this. They've got Zircuti bolsters in here. You've got speed holes. You've got of course, it's an integral with a milling pattern on the spine here. You've got a 3D milled pocket clip, also in zirconium. You've got lined relief cuts on the lock bar. You've got a lock bar insert on the inside. And of course, it's running on bearings with custom pivots, right? So this is meant to be like kind of a calling card, right? Like, hey, we can do all of this. Now, we've put it all into one knife, so it's a little bit obnoxious, but this kind of shows what we're capable of. I really like this piece. It's a showstopper for sure. People always want to know about this knife. And in fact, it's done very, very well, except for this pointy pocket clip right here. That is quite sharp. It will jab you in the hand. And then this obnoxious screw that doesn't match anything. Like, this should be black. It would match the Zircuti better, and it would match the other hardware. I don't know why they went with a satin screw right there. So kind of weird. But anyways, back to my tangent. And I actually, for once, remember what I was talking about. And that is, what is the benefit of the integral? So it does reduce the number of parts to a certain extent, right? Because you have no body screws, no backspacer, no liners, nothing like that. But it also means you have to expose hardware that maybe you wouldn't do otherwise. And let me see if I can find an example here. And of course, I have one. I have one right there. So you'll notice on this sandwich construction here, this is the Griffin Ultimatum, something like that, from Real Steel. There's no screw on the pocket clip because that screw goes, I almost dropped it, goes from the inside. You can kind of see it right there. So they're able to do things like that. You can hide screws. And going back to a good question. Oh, that's why. Okay. I just answered my own question. So I'm trying to see, I don't have any right now that has a hidden lock bar screw. That's a button lock. So this one, you can see the screw on the lock bar on the outside, but they could have put it on the inside. And so this could have been completely hidden. In fact, I've got one right here. So this has a hidden screw, right? So from the outside, it doesn't look like it has a lock bar insert, but it does have a lock bar insert. It just screws from the inside. And you can do that with a traditional sandwich construction. You cannot do that with an integral. It has to be on the outside. And I mean, it's pretty obvious why. You can't get a tool in here to like screw it in, right? Same with the pocket clip. It has to be on the outside. All of these you're going to see on the outside. There's just no way to do it. And even like you could make a tool that would allow you to tighten it from the inside, but there would be no way to screw the hole and thread a hole from the inside. Now, the reason you don't see the lock bar insert here is just because of the bolster. So if you take out the pivot, you would remove this bolster and then you would see that exposed screw holding the lock bar insert there. So this is kind of a cool trick to kind of hide it a little bit. but it is still on the outside there. So you don't save anything there, and that becomes visible. Same with like over travel and things like that. It gets more difficult. The other thing you have to contend with is, how do you construct the pivot? How do you get everything to go in? How do you get the blade stop? And that's where things get kind of cool. So this has a pin back here. You can see right there. So that is the pin to stop the blade in the open position, and probably, the closed position as well. You can see how it has that, it's kind of, that semicircle right there that it travels around. That's what stops that. How do you get a pin inside here? Well, what they did here is this little crescent shape. So you undo the pivot, this crescent shape comes out, and then that pin actually just slides in. So this shape right here, this piece of metal, this piece of titanium in here is what's holding that pin in place. That's a pretty common way to do it. There's a couple of different ways. I can't remember what this one is doing. It has the same thing, a pin. I assume these bolsters are holding that pin in, and it goes all the way through. So you have to get a little bit creative with how you put all this stuff together. And this guy right here, I believe the stop is integral. So the blade stop on this is actually just the back of the, no, actually, I take it back. The blade stop is the pins right there. I'm a goober. I think in the closed position, it actually hits up against the back of here. So this one doesn't have a separate pin that kind of comes in. Now what they've done here, and this isn't necessary, and you can watch I did a teardown video of this. I've taken it apart a number of times. But this oversized pivot collar here completely comes out. And then this is the radius of the bearing assembly that then plops in. So when you take this apart, you take this screw out, the guts just fall out and everything kind of comes out. When you're looking at something like this, that's not how they constructed it. This is more traditional. So everything has to like slide in and slide out. And believe it or not, taking these apart is not that hard. A lot of people are kind of worried about taking apart an integral. It's not that hard. And in fact, if you take a look at Chris Reeve Knives, CRK, I always have to be careful when I have like Custom Knife Factory, CKF, CRK. I always mix them up. If you look at how they recommend to take the knife apart, they actually recommend taking like Sebenzas apart like an integral, so that you just take the pivot out and you slide this out and slide it back in. They don't recommend actually unscrewing the body screws and taking it apart. So it's not that hard. And a lot of people just do that with any knife. They leave the body stuck together and they slide it out. So for me, the main benefit is it's just clean. It looks cool to have a single piece. It does save some parts, whether you care about that or not, I don't know. Now the downsides though, like I mentioned, you've got the exposed screws, but lightning and weight. You cannot, for the same reason you can't put screws in, you can't put any lightning holes in here. There's just no way to machine it, right? Because you're essentially taking just a giant end mill and you're just gutting out the insides of this thing. There's no way to get a tool in and lighten up these slabs. So they do tend to be heavy, and they tend to be heavy in the rear end, because you can see how this slowly tapers down into here to gut it out. And so back here, this is a solid piece of titanium, and it does add some weight to the back. Now, a knife like this Persian here from Custom Knife Factory is done a little bit better. There's less hogged extra material here when they cleaned it out. This one's fairly light because they made the scales themselves. Well, they're not scales, but they've left the thickness pretty light. You can see the difference here. Like this Kunu Excalibur here, it's pretty thick still, whereas they've thinned it out a little bit more. So they were a little more cognizant of keeping this one light by trying to keep the sides here thin and not having a big bulbous piece. But on this guy right here, which is one of the main complaints other than the original pocket clip that came on these, is how it's kind of heavier and it's kind of back heavy. This is like a happy medium. Chavez knives are pretty chunky. You can see how wide it is, so it's got quite a bit of material, but they did a pretty good job kind of keeping the sidewalls thin for the most part. That's not the good example. This is the good example. Actually, I take that back. Pretty chunky, pretty thick and chunky, and pretty damn heavy. Let's do some weights just for funsies. This one's a lot lighter because they've removed material for the overlays, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So the Excalibur, we're looking at 5.8 ounces. The full thick Ty Chavez is 6.6. And the Rasanti is 5.1. Not scientific measurements at all, because these are different knives. They're relatively the same-ish size, but obviously not exactly the same, but pretty dang close. Now, as we get into this guy, it's kind of funny because some of the pros I mentioned before, you know, keeping things clean, less parts. This kind of throws it out of the window because we've got this onlay, and we have to have screws on the outside, like I mentioned before, in order to put this on. And this kind of takes away from the look of the Integral, because when you see this, it doesn't scream Integral, even though it is, right? Because of these overlays. But it's still pretty damn cool, mainly because it's a chisel ground blade. And I really like chisel ground blades, and it's got a satin finish, so I really, really like it. This was one of the kind of limited runs from Chavez that they do, the 50 series, where they do 50 of each style. I forget the name of this one. They've all got a unique name based on who helped design it in the company. So very, very cool. So that's everything about Integrals. I think I covered all the knives, right? Excalibur. This is a Chavez 229 Integral. Same thing here, but this is just the different flavor. This is the Custom Knife Factory Persian, designed by Peter Rasanti, who's a very well-known custom knife maker. He kind of made Integrals pretty popular. He didn't invent them, but he uses it a lot in a lot of his models. He also did the Nirvana, which is a custom knife he makes, as well as a collaboration that he does with Spyderco. And of course, this is the oddball kind of resume knife from Infinity or Infinite, I forget, the Grievance, which is just a fun, weird knife. So comment down below, what do you think of Integrals? Do you like them? Do you think it's hype? Do you think it's just a novelty? I want to hear from you guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'll talk to you later.